We've made our way through over half the season. Verstappen wins by over half a minute, and Red Bull sets the record for consecutive race wins at 12. Welcome to episode 311 of Grid Talk. Today we are here to review the 2023 Hungarian Grand Prix. My name is Owain Medford, and joining me we have Grid Talk co-host Tom Downey.
Hello.
And Tom Horrox, also the co-host of the Monkey Seat podcast.
Hello.
And from the Grip Strip podcast, we have Philip Mathew.
Hello.
Before we get into the episode, we must thank our sponsor for this episode, BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use promo code BLEAV, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. But first, if you enjoy this podcast, we would love it if you could take 5 to leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're one of the 72% of people I'm reliably informed who aren't yet subscribed to the channel, please consider helping us out with a like and subscribe. Be sure to follow us on our brand new social channels, Grid Talk UK, to stay up to date with the show. Now, as I previously mentioned, obviously it's just an astounding victory from Max Verstappen, and we will talk about it later. What I would like to talk about first, however, we'll start with you, Tom, is I'd like to go around the room really, just because what a shocking weekend for Alpine after a shocking weekend previously. Let's start with you, Tom. Like, how bad is this for Alpine?
It can't really get much worse, can it? I mean, they have had two race weekends on the bounce where they've had a double DNF, and it's just they were going to be battling with McLaren for what, 4th or 5th in the constructors. That is over. You know, the rate McLaren have improved. That is over for Alpine. They needed a good weekend. They had an okay quality. They should have got at least one car into Q3. They didn't, and they absolutely do the bed today. You know, they got, granted, not completely their fault, but they were rather bunched up going into turn 1. You know, Bottas told Joe exactly how to approach turn 1 after 2021. He did duly that and just punted the one car into the other. You know, Gasly's right rear apparently was stuck onto the rim, so the Bottas influence continues. And then Ocon had to retire. All we heard was it was terminal. Apparently his seat cracked in half or broke in two. And then there were some reports he'd gone to the medical centre, some reports that he hadn't. Just Ted Kravitz summed it up. He said, what a waste. And I agree. What an absolute waste for Alpine. All the mechanics who've come there this weekend, you know, it's a grueling task being a travelling mechanic or, you know, engineer or, you know, personnel who travel to each race weekend with F1. To have that 2 weekends on the bounce, I know we didn't have a race last weekend, but, you know, two weekends in a row where you are packing up by 2:10. It's like, what is even the point?
Yeah, obviously, luckily this wasn't entirely their fault, Phil. But you do kind of wonder, like, what was the point? As Thomas said, what was the point of even going? You know, they could have stayed at home and made as many points and broken as few things. You know, do you see the sort of where do you see the kind of pressure from the Renault, you know, boardroom? Because clearly it's already claimed the career of one CEO of Alpine. You know, is the second, you know, already on his dying days?
I don't know. That's early days for him. I mean, at least Jack Doohan won earlier. That's about all they can take from this weekend. I mean, having a double DNF in turn 1 is great PR if you like crashing stuff, but not in terms of selling engines. And that's been the other news piece of this weekend for them, that they're going to have to do concessions for Alpine because of how bad the Renault power unit is, which sounds like MotoGP, which is how Ducati got to where they are now and Aprilia and all that. Well, I mean, when you're having to do concessions for your power unit because the dang thing can't even last, and when it does last, you're getting in a wrecks. I mean, it's just a really terrible look for them, and they don't have a customer team either. It's just those two cars, and Ocon has won at this racetrack 2 years ago. I mean, you'd think, and Gasly's not terrible around there, but there was absolutely nothing to show for it, like what Tom was saying. Tom D said, because I'm not sure what Tom H will say here in a minute, but I mean, it's ridiculous. And I'm sure that Otmar is going to have plenty of rah-rah speeches to say at Spa when they're having to build the cars back together and they have a sprint race to do in 6 days. That's going to be great for them. But it's been a nightmare scenario for them recently. And I don't think it's changing anytime soon, but they're stuck where they are. As has been said, there's no chance in bleep that they're going to move up from where they are in constructors. So it's really trying to somehow or another get in the top 10 in drivers' points.
Yeah, as you mentioned, there's no way, looking at the constructors, that you can see that they can really catch McLaren if McLaren continues on its current form. Tom Horrox, what I would like to sort of get your opinion on is, do you think the sort of 36-point advantage that they have over Williams and Haas is big enough for them to even consider dumping this car, entirely and focusing 100% on next year's car and just seeing if they can make any kind of headway and move up the field that way?
Well, realistically, I can't see any of the teams below them amassing 36 points between now and the end of the season. So logically, that would make a good step. But this is a team that has defied all logic for the last decade. And yeah, it's such a great. Other two panelists have really summed up brilliantly the race that Alpine have had today. But when you look at their entire season, you look at the Monaco Grand Prix, P3 and a P7. Outside of that freak result, they've not had better than a P8, and they've only had a handful of those. It's been an absolutely horrendous season from start to finish. And it's been performance, it's been decisions, it's been drivers, everything. It's no wonder Laurent Rossi's been put in the bin and moved on to wider products in the Renault industry. And like you said, I'm sure it won't be long before the new guy has realised the poison chalice that he's taken on here. And it's just a team. It's a ship just drifting, just listing lazily to the left. To quote Family Guy, they don't really have any manoeuvres to play. It's just a bit of an embarrassment, really. And a P6, when they were saying we want to be a P3 close to P2 this season, what were they thinking? How would they have any hope of doing that? This is the team that hasn't competed for a championship since with an underfunded Lotus team, Kimi Räikkönen coming close. Not even close. Just winning a couple of races. That's the last time this team were competitive in any positive sense. So it's just, for me, they're just an embarrassment at the moment, and it needs something. Something needs major investment. Ryan Reynolds isn't going to save them, so I don't know what their hope is going to be for the future. But it's not a good season. They need to do something. They need to complete overhaul, start again, start another 5,000 race plan, and then just restart it again. They need to do something.
Yeah, Laurent Rossi's specialty seems to be shuttering divisions at Alpine or within Renault, and it's important to note that they're 2 5-year plans into the Renault ownership again, and they're behind two Mercedes customer teams in the constructors. Now we'll move to the team that's also sort of closest to getting ahead of them. We'll start with, I'm going to do it a bit weird, but I'm going to start with Williams. You'd expect this Tom Downey for this track not to really suit the Williams, bearing in mind that typically their strengths have been high error efficiency, lower downforce circuits. But it's a decent weekend for Williams when you got Albon in 11th and Sargent really kind of unfortunately finishing 18th.
Yeah, I did wonder if Albon was going to maybe sneak a P10 at the end. But, it wasn't to be. I think you could say if you add the two results together and then and then sort of divide them by two, so you basically get a sort of mean result. It's about fair. I would have thought Sargent could have been a bit further ahead, but also I think none of us predicted Alfa Romeo qualifying where they did, and then also falling back just quite as quickly as they did. But Albon being P11 on the cusp of points, all he needed was one of the things go wrong in front of him. Sadly, it didn't happen today. We didn't even have a yellow flag until Logan Sargent. Aside from that one, we didn't have a yellow flag until Loki Bear spun on lap 68 or 69 odd, and then he boxed and retired, which I don't blame him, to be honest. It was it's showing progress because we saw it at tracks like Austria and Silverstone and Australia where Williams were genuinely quick, but like you said, it was lower downforce, higher speeds, less sort of like aerodynamic dependency. Whereas, I say all the time, Hungary, Monaco without the walls. I hate that phrase, by the way. It's Williams just showed that they are making genuine improvements. Even if you look at their pace, in Monaco from 2 months ago, they are looking a lot stronger than they were back then. And the team in general, they just look happier. The engineers look happy. The media teams, they're happy. Williams are a team that is on the up, and I for one, I'm all here for it. And also, it's good that they've got Albon on board, and he rejected the approach from Red Bull. Good for him. He's sticking with Williams. He's going to do well. He is doing well there. I think Logan Sargent is beginning to come good. It's obviously difficult to adjust to F1 from F2. It's a big step up, and I think they're both doing a good job.
Yeah, they're really making it work, and it does look like they're finally. We're getting back to the glory days of Williams, if not there yet. But obviously, it's a long road to go. Another team who has a long road to go, but maybe not such good prospects. I think working it out, they're the lowest average finishers are Haas in this race. We've got Magnussen and Hulkenberg at 17th and 14th. Respectively, Phil. Is there anything to say really? Like kind of a race where you thought that they might be able to get something out of at least the start, and just sort of did nothing.
I mean, the Alfa Romeos helped them in the process because they were involved in the Alpine situation, and so did AlphaTauri. And then of course Nico Hulkenberg does his usual qualifying thing, but then reality sets in, and then the day changes to Sunday, and then their car disappears. So and their drivers do too, and that's what happened today. And it's unfortunate, but it's par for the course. There was a story on Motorsport about Kevin Magnussen saying the things that they're doing to the car, the upgrades they're making, go against his strengths, which might explain why he's had such a dip in performance relative to last year when he was so energetic and happy and everything was going. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's mind-numbing to me. I was having that conversation with somebody yesterday while I was at Pocono about how neither my driver, Tony Stewart, or Gene Haas care about anything that they're involved in. And I don't really think he cares about this team, because if he did, I wouldn't be accepting them running in the back every single week for years. I get it's rough. Well, yeah, probably. That's become his thing. I mean, it's not like what a certain guy that used to drive there, but it's just you want to talk about a waste with Alpine and their whole weekend. Like, it's just wasting time with Haas. Like what is your end game? You're waiting to get more, wind tunnel time. Like, you're hoping that Ferrari comes good. They prove on a weekly basis that they can't make sense of what they're doing. So you're expecting them to help you? I mean, come on, man. They need to make wholesale changes there, and they never will. And they'll always be they'll be tailback. And at least Williams has the foresight to hire an American driver, since Haas never has and never will, seemingly.
Yeah, you can't imagine. I'll take your word for it on the NASCAR side, but you can't imagine Roger Penske allowing this to happen for this long. And then we get to a Guan Yu Zhou who riding high after qualifying, Tom, but back down with a bump.
Yeah, now people are probably going to expect me to have a massive tirade about which Alpha team, Alfa Romeo we're talking about here. Pick your team, but I'm not actually going to do that. I'm going to surprise a few people because I'm actually like they were rapid on Saturday, and I was dead impressed. And I know like it was a bit of bad luck. The start from Zhou, it almost looked like like in you playing the F1 game, and then you kind of you like I've done, you forget to disengage the clutch. He just kind of like he did a good start, but it was just a second after everyone else left, and just by the time he'd started, everyone was flying past him, and he caused all that carnage at the back. And if it weren't for that little moment there, I could have actually got excited about an Alfa Romeo race today, and that's a little bit frustrating, but. Yeah, it was actually they showed that there might be a reason for that team to exist, which just hasn't really been a case for that all year. They've been this just waiting for the Audi money, as we say every week, and or getting the Audi money, just building up, and they actually looked like they might have had something. Zhou genuinely looked rapid. Bottas didn't look too far behind. Once again, Bottas has come through and done better in the race, showing his experience and everything like that. And it still yielded no points. And they're not, they seem to have one car finishing close to the points and the other one finishing at the back every race. They seem to alternate which one it is that does that. But I genuinely think that with this race, they've shown that there might be something. And that has given me some hope for the rest of the season, because I don't like being negative. I like being positive. I love this sport, but they just give me so many reasons to be negative sometimes. But again, no points for Alfa Romeo, but I'm not going to bag on them. I think they've shown that they've got something to fight for. They've shown that they have a reason to exist. So that in itself is a compliment from me. So bravo, Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, Alfa Romeo seemed like they were maybe just on the chance of stuttering into life, as many an Alfa Romeo owner will be able to tell you. Just that little cough, and you're like, oh, we could be in here. Now we're going to move across to the other Alfa team, AlphaTauri. Obviously heralding the return of Daniel Ricciardo to F1 or to an F1 grid for the first time in some months. Now, Tsunoda kind of performed as he does usually, having unfortunately, he's got the sort of ignominy of ending up in 12th at one point and then dropping back to 15th, whereas Ricciardo did the reverse. Is the pressure automatically now to Tom Downey on Tsunoda? Because I can't. I mean, maybe I have a different view on it, but I can't see anything else other than a kind of magic performance out of Daniel Ricciardo, first time in the car.
The pressure is on Tsunoda. It is Danny Rick's first race back in an F1 car. Now I know he did the Silverstone test, and you've been doing sim work and this and that, but nothing can quite prepare you for the actual adrenaline of being on track with cars around you. And he put that AlphaTauri into Q2, which, quite frankly, is not where it belongs. It belongs at the back of the grid because it's a steaming pile of doo-doo. I was about to say something else then. Monetization, though. He got unlucky at the start because he got hit by Zhou just lightly going into turn one. And Danny Rick was he was one of the layers in the F1 BLT that we had going into turn one, which had an Alpine topping, so he was caught up in that. It compromised his race a bit. He boxed to the hards, realised that the hards weren't actually weren't doing a good job. He then dumped them, went back to set mediums, had really good pace on the mediums. We didn't see an awful lot of him on the broadcast, understandably so. And then next thing you know, you look back up and he was what, P13 in the end. So you might look at it and go, okay, well, he finished where he qualified, but he was knocked down to, I think he was knocked down to last after Gasly had DNF'd. He was knocked down to last, or he's down to certainly I think P18. And yeah, just a good. I don't even want to say recovery drive because because I don't think that's fair on him. But it was just you just did everything that you needed to do, and is. highlighted how I think it's definitely highlighted the shortcomings of Sonoda, and I think Sonoda's going to go, hang on a minute, I need to dot my ideas up here. So yeah, definitely a welcome return to the grid for him. I'm glad that we've got the Danny Rick that we all know that we hoped we were going to get at McLaren, which we only got fleeting sort of like visits from. And yeah, good to see him back in the car. Good to see that Honey Badger grin. Yeah, I like Danny Rick, but I was questioning why he come back. But no, I think he's. I think this weekend at a difficult circuit, he's proved his minerals.
Yes, exactly. And now I promise I didn't script how this was going to end up turning out, but we then move up to Aston Martin, Phil. Not sort of amazing for Alonso, falling backwards through the pack and maybe just deciding, this isn't really my race, maybe accepting their true position. But they're 2x2 here. Is this where is this a decent result for Aston Martin, would you say? And do you think they can maintain? They've fallen a little bit, but is this their kind of where they're locked in now?
I'm not sure it's where they're locked in. I don't think they're satisfied, and I'm definitely figure that Fred is not happy finishing 9th in a race, last car in the lead lap. When he was up front a lot of the year at Monaco, he qualified 2nd and was one of the closest contenders to actually compete with the world champion. And now he's competing for end of points. He's only 6 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton in the driver's standings. In terms of constructors, they're closer to Ferrari, I think, than they are to, they're closer to Ferrari than they are to Mercedes now. So we'll see what they do at Spa here next week, but it's been a downturn on performance while McLaren came up with like whatever that miracle cure, I guess, and Mercedes is there. And so it's kind of a 50-50 kind of deal. That's where they were. They're middle of the pack. I mean, they're not middle of the pack in terms of what their car really is and what they've done earlier in the season, but it's starting to go that way. It's starting to feel like they're kind of going to be driving around with Alpine more than they're going to be driving with the other 3 teams. They're going to be competing with Ferrari too, I guess. But I don't think that's what they wanted from this weekend, especially Alonso, but it's kind of been the trend recently. So I'm not really surprised for 9th and 10th. Stroll didn't really do anything, and he finished a lap down. Probably could have been, and guys mentioned about Albon possibly having a chance to get him. That would have made it even worse. So, we'll see what happens with them next week. They'll have a month after that, and then we'll see what goes on. If they're really going to contend for 3rd in the constructors, I'm thinking they're going to fall back from that too by the year's end.
Yeah. Speaking of falling back, but I mean, we didn't even see it. But we're talking about Ferrari. That's who we've got next. Tom Horrox. What can we say about Ferrari that hasn't already been said? They were, largely anonymous in some ways. They popped up here and there, mostly for pit stops. But there's glimpses of their form coming back, but they weren't even. Were they impacted by the tyres, or did they just not have the speed?
Well, I mean, I can say something that's not been said, but unfortunately, it'd be a bit of a lie. So there's not really any point saying that. But no, it's. I've tried desperately to be positive about Alfa Romeo, and I will try and be positive about Ferrari, but I am going to fail, unfortunately. The only thing I can think about is that Leclerc's reported after the race that the last 3 races had radio issues, which has led to communication issues between him and his team. I'm not sure that's really the excuse, because you see throughout the race, you saw Carlos Sainz on fresh tyres. Like before the race, you say, look, Sainz is starting on the softs. If he comes up behind you in the early stages, don't get in his way. He's only got a limited window with that. Don't worry, that will come back to you later in the stint. That needs to be unwritten. You shouldn't need to have a radio communication for that. That should just be like entrenched. And then it seemed to me like, so Sainz then lost a load of time from that. And then Leclerc had a bad pit stop. And then it seemed like they then boxed Leclerc to undercut Sainz to make up for the fact that he had a bad pit stop, and it didn't matter because he sped in the pit lane anyway. And it just seemed whichever car was the fastest always ended up behind the other one, and they just kept getting in each other's way all the time. And I'm sorry, but the only people to blame for that is the team, because the driver's not going to give up position unless they're expressly told by their team, in this scenario, you get out of the way. They're not going to give up position to their teammate, especially to their teammate. With these guys, they want to be winning championships. You can probably, like, when you're looking at the back, when you've got Magnussen and Hulkenberg, they've got rules of engagement. But these guys, they've come into Ferrari to win races. And yes, they're not going to win any races anytime soon, but that's what their mentality is set at. And that's what they're going to be trying to do. So to be in this position where they're constantly getting in each other's way, constantly costing each other points, it's just embarrassing again from them. Leclerc got a 9.4 second stop, complaining about the strategy over the radio. He seemed to be communicating fine with them then because he was whinging about stuff. So, and then, Sainz not being allowed to pass, calling his own strategy again, saying, no, we're not going to pit yet. It's too early. And it just seems, again, just like no leadership in there as well. And you've got to give Fred Vasseur time, but these are the kind of operational things that he's got to put right. Because these are the things that are hemorrhaging points and are costing them championship positions. And now Ferrari, they have closed in on Aston Martin this weekend. So that's a positive. But Mercedes have just got so far away that I think Mercedes are now nailed in for that second place. Aston Martin and Ferrari are fighting out for that fourth place. But they've got to look after their shoulders as well, because currently on trend, McLaren are going to pass them both, which I would never have thought 3 races ago. But you look at the trend on points, and that's absolutely going to happen. So they need to look over their shoulders. So they need to sort it out quick. But otherwise, they're going to end up in a very difficult position at the end of the season.
Yeah. The only note I can add to that is, particularly with the operational stuff, is that it mattered when there wasn't a cost cap, but in the age of the cost cap, operational successes are free time. You don't have to spend money and time developing those, and they work no matter what the rules are. Now, one of the better sort of performers today was George Russell, Tom Downey, 18th to 6th. Does that make up for the fact that Hamilton lost 4 positions at the start and never really gained them back for Mercedes?
It was a very, very good drive from Russell today. He started on the hards. Obviously, he capitalised a little bit on the shenanigans happened to turn 1, but that's how Ocon won the race 2 years ago. I'm not saying that we got lucky with him, because he did drive the wheels off that Mercedes. He did what he needed to do. I think the result he got today probably about the best he could have got. He was on an alternate strategy, made it work. The Merc is good in race pace. We've seen it, although they were struggling a little bit with rear tyre attempts, and Hamilton was especially at one point. But yeah, it was. It's funny because it was like today. It was like, again, it was contrasting fortunes, you could say, but the other way around. Because yesterday, Russell had the bad day at the office, Hamilton had the good day at the office. Whereas today, Hamilton had the bad day at the office. In relation, and then Russell had the good day at the office. Because he went from P18 to P7, or I might move that to P6 with Leclerc's penalty. I can't remember. But he was right up there. He was running. He was running, I think, P4 at one point, but he obviously hadn't pitted. Made good pace on the hards. The hards looked all right when cars were heavy with fuel. When they got a bit lighter, it became apparent that the mediums the tyre. Yeah, Hamilton. I think if the McLarens behind him and Max had not got as good a start, he'd have led into turn 1. And I said it yesterday. I think when I was chatting with Warren on the qualifying review, that I thought Hamilton was going to hold into turn 1 because the left-hand side was the clean side. Yes, they cleared off some of the marbles, but there still were some marbles there. But Norris got a really good start. Piastri got an amazing start, and Max got a really good start as well. And it just he Max just ended up, Max just held the line into turn one, and then he just that was it really. So, and then he was down to P4 by turn 6. So I felt for him a bit, but turned it into a race to attrition by that point.
Yeah, exactly. Really didn't work out well for him. As you mentioned, Norris and Piastri got an amazing start. Piastri are getting the rawer end of the deal there, Philip. I've got to say as well, I think McLaren's race, they both drove decent races. If I had to guess where the difference in time has come from, is because Piastri did get that first stop, which, as I said in the commentary, Mark Webber will be wary of because Piastri was leading. He was leading ahead of Lando, and it's not like it wasn't by it wasn't like it was by a little bit. There was a gap there. Will they be wary of that going forward? Just to make sure that the same thing that happened at Red Bull tomorrow doesn't happen to Piastri.
I would hope so. I don't understand what the justification was when, other than points position, because Piastri made the great start, as mentioned already, allow him to go and run his race. If Lando wants to make hay, he has to go and earn it after pitting after Piastri. You took away an opportunity for him to get a podium again. That was a wasted opportunity for him. Yes, great. Lando gets second place and they're making a lot of points, but Piastri did the job today on the start, and he's been doing the job recently. He doesn't look like a rookie right now. I mean, it helps with the car, but I've said it many times that this is the most balanced lineup in Formula One, and I think that's part of why this has become more of this team has gotten more competitive, along with, of course, these upgrades. I hope they don't go down that road, because this kid is really, really good. One of the best talents that's come to Formula One in a long time. And if you want to play favoritism, they should be running for wins. This is not for like podium spots. I don't think it's serious, but we'll see as the season goes on, because that's a competitive battle between those two guys. Piastri's trying to get in the top 10 in drivers' points. But I hope that's just a blip on the radar screen. He's able to get a podium here, whether next week or once the summer break ends, because he's really, really good. And I mean, Lando is too, and he's shown, but so is Oscar.
Yeah, I think that's really shown, sort of like, Oscar is showing that he did make the right move, as did McLaren when and making the move to sign him, and I think Alpine will be ruining that. Although, to be fair, I think Piastri would want to be in the Alpine either. Luckily for him, he didn't end up there. Now, I think that's we could wax lyrical about Verstappen's drive all day. I think the more interesting thing at Red Bull is that is this a return to form for Perez? Is he doing enough now, or if he continues this to be considered as the de facto number 2 driver at Red Bull, or is he still going to be looking over his shoulder, Tom?
I don't think necessarily he's looking over his shoulder. He's been given, he's definitely under pressure. We'll wait and see what Ricciardo does later in the season, but that pressure will always be there. No matter what happens at Red Bull, you're always under pressure. Even Max Verstappen's under pressure, even though he doesn't look like he is. But Max Verstappen today, phenomenal drive. By turn 1, the race was over. We knew that, done and dusted. Forget about it. But yes, Perez today, we've got to remember as well, they did bring what they reckon to be 2/10 of performance to that car, and it's a car that would have already suited that car already. It's that track already. So I think like Perez has done well. I know like in the grid talk Slack, I voted for Perez for driver of the day just as a joke, given my previous comments about Sergio Perez. But we'll get into what I actually think later on. But if you still looked at his lap times, and believe me, I did. He's on the hard tires the medium tyres, and Verstappen's on the hard tyres, and they're doing the same lap times. So it's still, it's fine. It's number 2 driver level stuff. He's never ever going to push Verstappen in that. If he's up starting alongside Verstappen in that race, he's finishing a distant 30 seconds off Verstappen, and we're still saying, is he good enough to be number 2? It's only because he's gone forward in the race that people are saying what a great drive he's had. So yeah, for me, he's done about as well as he probably should do today. Does that get him driver of the day nominations? Absolutely not. If you're giving Perez driver of the day for being slightly better than average, then what are we doing with driver of the day? It's not. It's surely most overtakes. That's what it is. But even then, George Russell wins that one. So no, it's not driver of the day performance from Sergio Perez, which I'm sure we can debate later on. But for me, he's done enough today. So congratulations. That's probably 4 races this year. He's done what he's supposed to do. So let's wait and see what happens. Let's see what happens overall over the rest of the season. But yeah, fine. He gets no hate from me today, apart from the fact he was a bit slower than Max Verstappen, which is kind of what we expect.
Yeah, giving Perez driver of the day. He is the official Grid Talk driver of the day. Voted by us during the race. I didn't go for him. I went for Daniel Ricciardo because I thought that was an excellent performance first time back in the car. But yeah, it's sort of it smacks of giving merit points to the bad kid just because they're good for a week, like when you're at school. Right. I mean, we've as I say, I've gone through my driver of the day. We've got Tom clearly doesn't think that that Perez was driver of the day. Tom Downey, who was your driver of the day today?
I'm going to say Sergio Perez.
Okay. Would you like to justify that one?
Well, yeah, you started on the alternate strategy. You made that hard time work, and yes, I know Tom going, that's not the same thing. Yeah, well, good for him. He's type P18, so shut up. And you made the strategy work. You put in moves when you needed to, and yeah, got that car up to where it should be. Should you have started higher up? Yes, obviously, but a few drivers should have. So just the moves you're putting in, and then then towards the end when Hamilton was when Hamilton was beginning to chase him down, he then just backed off the pace. He held the gap, because everyone was going, "Oh, might Hamilton get a podium?" No, Perez just backed off. He kept enough in the tyres if he needed to defend the position against Hamilton. He could, and yeah, just a good, well controlled race.
Yep, I'd agree. Philip, who was your driver of the day?
So I'll just go in because it's funny. I'm just going to go with George Russell. He had a great take yesterday about how bad it was in Q1 and his errors and whatever else and gentlemen's agreements, which I don't think exists, especially in Formula One with the way they do qualifying at small racetracks. The fact is, for point saving and for making the most out of the weekend, that was the saving grace for George and for Mercedes, considering Lewis's race was basically over a few hundred feet into the race because he did such a bad start. So I'll go with George Russell for hilarity's sake. There probably are others that maybe are more deserving, but we'll see what happens with that, next week.
Yeah, Tom, I think we covered your driver of the day.
Well, you covered my not driver of the day.
Oh, right.
My actual driver of the day, I'm just going to go slightly different to everyone else. I'm going to go with Lando Norris because he got pushed out a little bit at the start, losing that position. And then I thought it was the experience of him which got him back ahead of Oscar Piastri, because he once he realized he's behind Piastri, he knew the team were never going to let him fight. So he's just sitting there, dropping back a couple of seconds, looking after his tyres. And then when it came to the point of the undercut from Hamilton, the threat for the undercut, they box him first. Here's his chance. Amazing in-lap. Great pit stop. Absolutely dynamite outlap. Clear, absolutely clear away from Hamilton. And then the team have got to bring in Piastri, and he's come out alongside him. And then you saw after the race, his race pace was so much better than Piastri's. So for me, I think that, difficult situation. and he's come through for a strong P2 there. So I would actually say Russell, but I just want to be different to everyone else, so I'm going to go with Norris just for diversity's sake.
I didn't know. I thought you just didn't want to risk the ire of your monkey seat co-host.
I'll save that for tomorrow night's recording. Don't you worry.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Tom Downey, we sort of moved to the end of the show. Is there anything that you want to promote?
Yeah, go listen to Formula Talk, which is the sister show to this. It's we talk about F2, F3, F1 Academy, and yeah, just the junior series. I do that with Sophia when she's not gallivanting around America. So she's away at the minute. So I'm gonna need someone to be a panelist this week, actually, if you fancy it. So go listen to that. We'll be chatting about F2 and F3 from this week, from today and yesterday. Then doing a preview of Spa next week.
Oh, I thought I'd muted myself. I clearly haven't. And Philip, do you have anything that you would like our Grid Talk listeners to listen to?
Yeah, you can listen to the Grip Strip podcast and find it anywhere where podcasts are. You can listen to them. We talk about all things motorsports. If it goes fast, we usually talk about it on the Grip Strip podcast. Myself and Josh Fine, former guest on here. We talk about all different racing. I'll get to talk about my time at Pocono Raceway yesterday and being home and doing double duty here on the Grid Talk. Always love doing that, hanging out with you guys. And great job, Owain, in subbing, and also for Tom H for being able to come in on the last second, or I forget which Tom it was I was subbing. Yeah, Tom D is subbing. Okay. No, that's fine. It's okay. He's already we're usually hosting anyway, so he's readily available. Yeah, great hosting or great hanging out with you guys. I love being on Grid Talk, and yeah, we'll keep it going. Got one more race to go in this first half of the season, and we'll enjoy Spa, one of my favorite circuits in the world. Hopefully we keep it on the schedule, but I'm starting to feel like it isn't going to be. But at least next week we get 2 races, so that'll be nice.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it around Spa, not gonna lie. That's going to be fun. Tom Horrox, we know you're a co-host of the Grid Talk podcast, but where can we find Monkey Seat?
Just Monkey Seat podcast on all major podcasting platforms. If you want to come and just listen to us talk rubbish about Formula One, I think that's all the promo it needs, to be honest.
Excellent. If you're watching live on the live stream, but Grid Talk is available on YouTube, where most episodes are recorded live, as well as on Amazon Fire, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Verbal, and Pocket Cast. Just search Formula One Grid Talk for our back catalogue of shows with previews and reactions to qualifying and race results. And please consider supporting the channel on Patreon so we can get mics, lights, and better recording equipment for our presenters. Also, make sure you subscribe so you're the first to know when each new weekly episode is released. We will be back soon with plenty more F1 content. Thank you very much for listening to the Grid Talk Thank you very much for listening to the Grid Talk podcast presented by Bet Online, and goodbye.